of a shot of winning. We can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Welcome to the New York Jets Atlantic Flight podcast. Today, your hosts, the draft nerds, Timmy, Ryan and Andy, are diving deep into the Jets' up-and-coming draft. They'll be dissecting potential defensive weapons the Jets could snag with that coveted number 2 pick. So, the seatbelt sign is on. So now, let's kick things off and hand it over to Timmy. Timmy, take it away.
Thanks very much, Gus. And hi, everyone. And we're back for our 5th episode of the 2026 cycle of the Draft Nerds podcast. We have been focusing on players in the range of 16 to 54, where we have 3 picks in our previous podcasts. But for this show, we're going to change it up and focus on the game-changing edge defenders that are likely to be in play at pick number 2. Joining me tonight, as usual, are Ryan and Andy. How are you boys doing?
Very well, thanks, mate.
Yeah, all good.
Very good. So we're going to talk about the 3 edge defenders that are probably going to be in that range tonight. Arvell Reese from Ohio, Ruben Bain from Miami, and David Bailey from Texas Tech. Lots of mock drafts are showing these going in different orders. We're going to go on the order of the PFF Big Board tonight, and we're going to kick it off first with Arvell Reese. How we've been doing this is we've each taken a prospect each to deep dive on, whilst each of us has still looked at that prospect. So we're going to take turns, and I'll kick it off with Arvell Reese first tonight. So a big linebacker, 6'4", 243 pounds with 35-inch arms, so very rangy. His overall grade is 76.4. His pass rush grade is the lowest of the 3 at 72.1. In 2025, he played 14 games. He had 37 tackles, and he had a run defense grade of 86.5. So that's the highlight of the grades. He had 34 run stops, and he had a 56.4 coverage grade. I suppose from a pressure perspective, he had 27 pressures, which consisted of 8 sacks, 6 QB hits, and 13 hurries. He only performed 121 pass rush snaps, which I think is an important thing to kind of talk about. As we come to the end of talking through these guys, it's something we can reflect back on again. So less pass rush snaps than the others, lower production, but he was playing primarily as a linebacker with a sprinkling of some pass rush in there as well. I think the thing that we'll probably end up discussing about him is that if he's going to go number 2 overall, he's being drafted as an edge rusher. Position of value for a linebacker would be highly unusual to take somebody that high. Just kick into, I suppose, what I saw when I was watching him on tape. So when you put on the tape, the first thing that's recognizable is his impact, in particular in a 3-4 front. It's almost like having a 5th man in the front at times, and especially when he's isolated against an offensive tackle, he's dominating. He uses his length and his power to win with aggression at the point of attack, and he makes life very difficult, especially in a one-on-one matchup. You just don't expect a hybrid linebacker to have the power that he has when he goes into a bull rush, but he's a problem when it's one-on-one. He gets his hands high and into the face of the defensive tackle and drives his legs and ends up through the offensive tackle time and time again. He is the bend of a pass rusher is what I would say, which isn't always what you see with these hybrid kind of guys. Sonny Style, we talked about his upside as an edge rusher as well, but he doesn't have the fluidity in the hips, and you can really see that when Reese is kind of whipping around an offensive tackle. There's lots of whip and bend and movement. Ryan did mention last week that you'd need to choose a role for him, and I'd have to agree with that. He's doing so much. It's hard to kind of almost measure him against the others. However, I do think because he has this versatility, and I think you'd have to be drafting him as an edge rusher, I do think that you could utilize him in different packages for blitzing, maybe on third down where you have JJ and Will McDonald on the field, and he can maybe come in and be an extra blitzing attacker, which we like to do and we know AG likes to do as well. And I think he's going to be problematic in our scheme if we utilize him that way. Also, I suppose Ohio State, their D-line philosophy was quite fluid. All the players were asked to do different things, work across multiple positions, edge and interior, and for him, I suppose, as the linebacker as well. So multiple personnel groupings for them, often with a 4-man front, often with a 3-man front. So we see him blitzing quite a lot, would say, into the B gap or the C gap, and like he's an issue when he's getting in on anywhere near a guard. He's just too much of a big unit for them to be able to deal with. I suppose because he's a hybrid, his comp is going to be Micah Parsons, and I think that brings a lot of pressure with it. And we saw for Parsons to be the value that he is, he had to become an edge rusher. So I think it's worth keeping that in mind as well. He's an elite long athlete that shows up in the run game, where his long arms and quick speeds make him effective when he's closing in on the gap, or when he rushes a wide receiver who's coming out wide. He's always preventing the yak with just that wide span that he has, and he closes speed, and he wraps up abilities, or his wrap up abilities are very good as well. Game intelligence and patient, but hugely impactful in the run game as well, and his angle of attack is excellent. Sometimes longer prospects like him struggle to get low, but his lateral mobility kind of makes up for that, and he commits to the tackle at the right time, and he wraps very effectively as well. He fights through everything as well. He doesn't give up on a play as well. He still tries to locate the ball carrier, even if he gets kind of stuck on a rush. So his football IQ, I would say, is very high. Working those multiple positions means he has to have a really strong understanding of the different positions within a defense, and that's really positive for him, I would say, as well. He lines up on the weak side, the strong side, so he's all over the place. His coverage is probably the only thing that needs some work. He probably doesn't have the same instincts in coverage as some of the likes of Sonny Styles will say. But that being said, he was used in coverage more the previous year, and his coverage grading was way higher that year as well. But he is definitely more focusing on blitzing and getting at the run game, more so than his coverage piece. His instincts aren't quite as strong there, I would say. Probably needs to put on some more muscle if he's going to be an edge rusher as well. What was it I said? 243 pounds. I think the average for an edge rusher in the league is 250 to 265. So I think he'll have to put on, 20 odd pounds if he's going to make that transition. And we saw Micah Parsons put on a lot of weight after he moved to the position as well. So that's something he'd have to do. But he has the frame to take it as well. So I wouldn't have any concerns there. I would say he probably, if we're looking at him against the others, he's probably not as good a pass rusher as David Bailey or Ruben Bain. You're betting on the upside that way, but the upside is very exciting. It's important to have a look and see, who we hire at DC, what their scheme is. And, I spent a bit of time while I was doing this looking over the different candidates that are more likely to get the role. Most of them have a 3-4 front, which I think will suit him. Some of them have a 4-man front, so it's going to depend. You want to bring in a guy who's going to understand how to utilize him properly. And by the time the draft comes around, we'll have a better idea of that, and it might frame our decision as well about, whether we want to take him at the number 2 pick or not. I suppose to kind of summarize, right? So top end as a linebacker, very strong, but like to take him at number 2, you want him to be an edge rusher. And I think when you look at his edge rushing snaps, it's all there. It's all there. He's just not been utilized that way as much. But I'd be very excited if we took him there, thinking about the upside. But you are betting on the upside. So I suppose over to, I'll go to you, Ryan, first, because I think that Andy's up next with Ruben Bain. What are your thoughts on Arvel Reese?
I like him. I'm not going to deny that. I think he is a athletic beast. He's like, you've covered all his traits. He has elite traits. He is going to transition to this league very well. And as I said on the last show, you cannot draft this man if you don't have a plan for him. If you don't know where his best role is, you're taking such a big gamble, and you're hoping to luck into what really is going to work for him. I see him, his best role at linebacker, rather than edge. And I think part of that is because I don't feel he right now as an edge rusher is necessarily good enough to show me that he will be a better edge rusher than Ruben Bain or David Bailey could be. So if you're drafting him to be an edge rusher here at 2, for me, why you wouldn't take somebody who's a more natural, more proven, productive edge rusher, still with a ceiling to get to, rather than the guy that you kind of thinking, oh well, he's got it, he must get to that level. I think we're putting a lot of faith into the coaching that we have with that thought process. So I feel like I'd be more comfortable taking him if I knew he was going to be taken as a linebacker, because I feel that is his best position, and I feel that the other 2 are better options potentially for us as an edge. So, but I think Arvell Reese is a fantastic player. He is going to be a stud in this league as long as the right team gets hold of him and uses him in the right way. I'm not sure if we can. We haven't shown enough in our coaching tree right now to say we would handle him correctly and get the best of him.
I suppose the counter argument I'd have to that would be that, let's say we bring him in and he doesn't perform at edge the way you'd hope. You can push him in at linebacker, he's going to be elite. So it's almost like having a kind of a safety net for the draft, being a success or not, which you don't get kind of, especially what we'll say a David Bailey, who's going to be like predominantly an edge rusher. If he doesn't transfer his skills in the league, you're kind of stuck. And I think if you're taking someone at number 2, they have to have that really high pro ball upside, I think, and have something a bit different about him. And with him, I think the fact that you can move him around kind of makes him very difficult to scheme against, would be what I would say. He can move in around. So that kind of would be the upside part for him, I would say. So, but yeah, if he's only going to be a linebacker, take him at 2 probably isn't the right move.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm against us taking him at all. I just think that if he's solely gonna go in at edge, I'd have concerns at us converting him to that. So, but look, he is going to be a stud in this league. There's no question. What's great, and I was saying this to you earlier, wasn't I, Timmy? That the way I kind of feel, and this might be just copium kicking in, but I just feel that without having the pressure of having to take that quarterback at 2, because there isn't one, it is opening these defensive prospects who will add way, way more value to our team right now and have much more chance of hitting as starters. And Arvell Reese would slot in as a starter day 1 if you pick him up.
And do you know what? It's everything that you're saying, I kind of felt that way as well. Like, everything you're saying makes total sense. And it's just the more I watched of him, especially his strength profile when he's one-on-one, like, I didn't expect him to be able to bull rush and use his leverage so well. And I just saw a bit more than I was expecting to see, having watched Sonny Styles, who has potential to convert as well. I think just his edge rush prowess is just kind of a different league, I would say, to the likes of a Sonny Styles, and that's why I just think there's a bit more to him that way. How about you, Andy? Did you see anything different?
No, with Reese, I'm not going to say it was disappointing to watch. I think the way people talk about him and this kind of need to convert to edge and things like that, I was expecting to one player, I think, to the one that I saw. I thought watching him, his better pressures, he much better coming from that linebacker spot up the middle to me. I thought he was much more productive from kind of when he's rushing from the kind of more traditional linebacker spot. When I tried to watch him, I thought I was going to be thinking a similar thing to Jalen Walker last year. But for me, I wouldn't force him into the role of an edge rusher. I think he's a much better linebacker with that kind of upside of that pass rush. And like you say, being able to come from multiple alignments. And I'm glad you mentioned him fitting well in a 3-4, because I think that's the perfect spot for him. I think if you play him in a traditional kind of linebacker role, and then when you start to move, say, 5-6 guys up to the line, he's always one of those guys, and there's always the threat of him rushing. I think for me, it all comes down to the question of, if he does turn out to be a linebacker with some pass rush upside, would I be happier taking him at 2 as a linebacker or Styles at 16?
If we were just taking him as a
That's the
linebacker,
question.
I'd nearly prefer to take Styles. I just think Styles is more rounded as a linebacker with
Yeah.
upside. Yeah, so I'd nearly prefer to take Styles just purely as a linebacker. So I'd agree with you on that. Any more thoughts on that, Ryan?
No, I think this is the crucial thing is, and I know it's tricky, and we're doing a lot of speculation on the coaching tree at the moment. But I think it is very difficult, and it will be very difficult for whoever comes in to know if Arvel Reese is going to fit into whatever that is. And I have no doubt, like I say, he's going to be good in this league. He is going to be more than likely all pro level if he lands with the right coaching setup. I feel like for us, this isn't the right pick right now.
So I have a question for both of you as well. Having looked at the three of them, and we'll just talk about Reese first, we'll say, if you had looked at him in isolation in any draft class, what range would you have expected him to go in? I go to Andy first this time.
In any draft, I would see him going kind of in the 10 to 15 range.
Okay. How about you, Ryan?
In
Sorry.
a more balanced draft class.
Yeah. How about you, Ryan?
As a true linebacker, which is how I'm viewing him, I would say the 8 to 12 range probably.
All right, 8 to 12 is what I've kind of written down here as well, which is interesting. And just because I think he's kind of a top 10 talent, but sometimes they drop. Like, I'm just trying to think the type of players who've gone in that range over the years.
Kyle Hamilton, I think, although it's a much less valuable position, I think could be a really good comp here for what we're looking at. Like we can see there is a guy that has immense talent. The difference with Hamilton was that people didn't respect the position so much, but he does operate a bit like a linebacker at times anyway, or a slot. So I think that's the kind of thing you can see with Arvel Reese in another class. You would potentially see him slide just because people might not value that hybrid aspect so much as much as somebody that is a true master of a role.
Yeah, totally. And I'd be still really excited if we took him at 2. And I'm still on the fence a little bit about whether we should, of the 3 who we should take. I think I have an idea, but we'll tease this out. But 8 to 12, I think like in other years of drafts that we've seen, like, you know, who would I have taken ahead? Would I take a Mimbu ahead of him, for example? I think I would, right? And I don't know if that's going to be popular. And do you know what's unusual about this draft? The last 2 years heading into the draft, with our first round pick, I knew who I wanted both years, and luckily for me, we took the 2 offensive tackles, Fashanu and Mimbu, that I wanted the last 2 years. But this year, I feel less staunch on who I'm looking at and who I want, because we've so many holes, and I think that there's no real standout of who I'd want yet, at least anyway. Any other closing points on Arvel Reese?
No, I think we're good to jump into Bain, aren't we?
Perfect. Over to you, Andy.
So yeah, Ruben Bain. Just some brief kind of stats and things for him. So PFF giving him an overall grade this year of 92.8 as a defensive grade, 86.2 run defense, 64.6 tackle grade, which we'll get to, 92.4 on a pass rush grade, which is insane, and 76.4 on a coverage grade, which is neither here nor there for pass rushes really. So he's racked up 83 total pressures this year, 12 sacks, 68 hurries, 3 hits, 36 tackles, 11 missed tackles in there as well, which gives him a whopping 18.6 missed tackle rate, with 37 stops in the run game, and an interception as well, which people have probably seen on any highlight reel they've put on for him, that kind of ball that gets juggled up in the air and he kicks it off. But I think just my overall view on Bain, I watched a couple of games of him this past week. It's hard not to start when you're talking about the strength he has in the run game. He gets double teamed deliberately. He gets lined up against the tackle and the tight end quite a lot. And usually when you see guys getting double teamed, they get moved off, they get kind of pinned back. Bain just kind of gets into guys and just moves them. They struggle so hard to contain him. So no matter which way, teams cannot run to the strong side of their line at all against Bain, because despite the fact that he's got two guys on him, he is forcing his way through, and that side is blocked off. Okay, and what Miami did really well, sorry, this is a little bit off the thing with Bain, is they would send someone along the same side around the tight end, so that even bouncing it outside wasn't an option, but they could do that because Bain was there just taking over one side of the line. The leverage that he plays with, he gets so low and into the pads of tackles and tight end, and he's so quick as well, and he sort of gets that quick snap on the ball and immediately converts it into this immense power as he gets under guys' pads. So he is a true defensive end in terms of how he plays the run, how he runs the how he rushes the passer. And you think that someone like that, because what does he weigh in it? Like 270 odd he weighs in it?
275, yeah.
Yeah, 275. And the bend that he has for a guy of his build, when he comes off that kind of more like sort of wide nine rush position, he has this shoulder dip move that just takes him around and underneath tackles. And he's just gone. They cannot get hands on him, and he's behind the line quicker than they can kind of react to it. Obviously, the big talking point there's been kind of all year with Bain is the length of his arms. You think the guy just had four arms attached to his shoulders, the way people talk about him, but it kind of doesn't matter when you watch him play, because his hands are so active when he comes off the line of scrimmage that tackles quite often cannot get their hands on him because he's batting them away. He's got this wonderful kind of swipe move outside where he just takes out the tackle's arms and just kind of moves them out of the way. And it's not just a single move. He'll knock the arm out the way. The tackle will try to reset and get the hand back in, but he's already bringing it up in a chop move, a club move, whatever you want to see. And it's that kind of thing. If his short arms wouldn't matter if tackles could get their hands on him to start with. So he's so incredibly disruptive at the end of the line. And for me, sort of a little bit, there are some weaknesses to his game. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, otherwise it'd be an easy answer. Compared to the other players that we're going to talk about tonight, at least for me, Bain kind of represents the whole package from like an edge rush point of view. He's a devastating pass rusher, but the run defense is so good as well. And I think everyone else, there's kind of this caveat conversation of, well, he does this really well and he could learn to do this. But for me, Bain kind of already does it all. There are like negatives to his game. There are times when tackles, when they do get their hands on him, or whatever plan he had has failed, he doesn't really have a backup or almost. It's like, right, if my first thing doesn't work, what do I do next? And he just sort of flounders there and struggles to adjust. I'm probably pronouncing this awfully. Someone else may know. The left tackle from Texas A&M, is it Zuhn? Z-A-U-H-N.
I'm not sure how you pronounce that. We'll go on. We know what you mean anyway.
Yeah, he's the only guy. I watched a couple of games. He's the only one I saw give Bain like consistent trouble in that game, because he was able to get his hands on Bain and kind of stop, and then Bain didn't really know how to adjust. So I think one of the things he'll have to develop in the NFL is kind of a backup plan. So I will do X, and if it doesn't work, I will do Y, just so he can adjust. My only knock on him from a run game point of view is I'm not sure he has the best instincts in the world in the run game. I think he's incredibly strong, incredibly powerful and athletic. But I think, similar to what I said about CJ Allen on the pod last time, I think he's aggressive and he just hits whatever he's supposed to hit. And quite often he doesn't notice that the play has gone to another gap. And obviously, a run defender's job quite a lot of the time is just their gap. But when he did notice it, he did adjust. But there were too many times that I saw that he just didn't adjust and kind of was just out of the play without even realizing it. And you can't kind of talk about Bain without talking about those missed tackles. And I was listening to someone else talk about Bain, and they said kind of when your arms are that short, it's going to happen because your tackle radius isn't the same. So you are going to miss tackles that other guys with longer arms would make. So for me, from an overall point of view with Bain, I think, Timmy, you mentioned kind of the 3-4. If we do end up moving to that, I think you couldn't find a better fit for that scheme and that kind of hybrid 3-4 scheme than someone like Bain. I think he's such a solid run defender and has that pass rush upside that he will absolutely be the best guy for that type of scheme. So really interested to see what you guys thought of Bain.
Just almost the exact same analysis as yourself. I thought it was really interesting. You talked about, he's that size profile. He's almost like a bowling ball. And when you talked about him dropping and being fluid and coming around the edge, I kind of wrote down here the analogy is it's almost like the bowling ball has been spun around and it's just coming in around with spin and it's unstoppable. But then because it's unstoppable, he gets to the point where he can't turn back and he does miss those tackles. But like he's just unstoppable when he gets rolling. Like, really interesting the way you finished that off there, just talking about the 3-4 front. So I did my analysis on him a couple of days ago, and I thought I was being very clever. I came up with a great idea, and then Luke from the Jets film room did a breakdown on him and said the same thing and took my thunder completely. So I just thought that I think he projects really well to being on the inside as a defensive tackle as well. And I think if you're in that 3-4 front, I think he can be in the 3-tech position there. And I think that like you could compare him to like an Aaron Donald. They're almost the same size. Donald can also pass rush out from the side as well, or he could. They're nearly the same size. Donald's arms are only an inch longer, and I think that Bain is like 2 inches taller than him. I just think that he's got the same hair on fire mentality. And I had to look back then and made me kind of dig a bit deeper on it. In 2017, the Rams changed their scheme to a hybrid 3-4 scheme to maximize his impact. That's just a role I could see Bain come into. And I said earlier, if you're picking somebody number 2 overall, they have to have something special and a bit different about them. I think you can move him again on third down. I think put JJ and Will McDonald out there and put him in beside Briggs, and I think they'd be terrifying going forward. So I just think he gives us a little bit of flexibility there as well because of his size at 275. He's just that bit bigger. He's a mad-looking edge rusher. He looks more like a defensive tackle, I think, but he's got bend for his size. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's not a lot extra to add there. This guy is an absolute Hulk, isn't he? One of the main notes. You guys have covered pretty much all of it. I've noted that he got better as the year went on. I was a bit surprised he wasn't as productive in terms of sack count and in the earlier part of the year. But he's obviously blown it up in the playoffs, hasn't he? And so he has got better as the year's gone on, and it's been against good quality O-lines as well in the playoffs. That's the other thing to note, even though he wasn't as productive at the start of the year. I love the fact that he just wins. It doesn't matter the pressure that he's put under, whether it's double teams or whatever. He just wins, and that is just from him bringing so much strength to the role. Like he just dominates anybody he seems to go against. It's kind of scary how fast and strong and big he is all in one. I've noted that he's got a relentless engine as well. He just seems to go all day long. Until the last quarter, he's there chasing down quarterbacks, sideline to sideline. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, he ticks so many boxes, and the 3-4 conversation I think is really important because of these three, with not knowing the system we're going to run, he's the one that probably makes the most sense because he can work in either system. Mm-hmm. So from a hypothetical that say the draft was before we knew who this person was, he would be the best fit because you can utilize him on the edge or as a DT. And I think there is some exciting aspects to the different packages you can design with him in mind. He does bring great pass rush as well. So we're not talking about converting someone's position or taking away what is great about them, but in terms of the pass rush and the run stopping, he's got both sides of it kind of nailed, and that's sort of a better option for versatility, in my opinion, than a linebacker that might be able to be an edge. So Ruben Bain, I've been fighting it for a long time this season as to how good he is, because obviously he's Miami. But he is a fantastic prospect in this year's draft.
So something that I kind of stopped and thought about to that point as well is, would I prefer to take Ruben Bain at 2 and Sonny Styles at 16, or take Arvel Reese at 2 and maybe a Falk at 16? And I think I'd prefer the Sonny Styles option with Bain. And I think Bain, that versatility as well, we can still leverage the talents that we have in the team already, assuming Will McDonald hangs around and JJ hangs around. Anything else kind of there, Andy? Any other thoughts?
No, the only thing that I was going to ask, did you see that he's accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl?
No, because I actually
I
checked.
did see that.
Oh,
It
interesting.
was only about an hour ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
I hadn't seen that because I
It
thought
was
Bailey
wild.
was the only one, and like I'm excited to see Bailey there, but Ruben is going to demolish people there, I think.
I'm so looking forward to the one-on-ones now. It'll be hilarious.
Yeah, and here's a plug. We're going to be doing a few different episodes next week as well for the Senior Bowl, which has come around very quickly all of a sudden. We've had a few episodes in before it at least, but for me that's where it all really kicks off, and we start picking out guys that are maybe down the board a little bit that we see the flash, and we start looking at the bit of tape on them. I love that. This is where it gets exciting, I think. So bit of a plug. We'll have a few episodes potentially in the next, maybe some extra episodes in the next few weeks for that as well. What do you think about the idea of him potentially playing as a defensive tackle from time to time, or all the time, or whatever? I'll go back to you, Andy, first again.
I think it's really good, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's something I forgot tonight. I think he does have that kind of versatility, and yeah, he's got the size to do it and the strength to do it. And if we've got other guys who can come in and play that more sort of that kind of designated pass rusher role later on, he can easily fill in the middle for a couple of snaps a game.
How about you, Ryan? What's your thoughts of that?
Yeah, I've got no concerns if we roll that way. My biggest concern, I guess, at the moment would be if we switch to a 3-4 and he's operating as a defensive tackle. My concern then is that we're somehow having to find 3 starting linebackers. And I don't know that we have the necessarily the capital to do that in the draft. Obviously, we've got a lot of cash to spend in free agency. I know this is a rabbit hole I could go down. But that's a big part of what we'll need to think about, because I don't believe that we'll necessarily be able to transition the likes of Will McDonald to a linebacker role. Certainly anything more than situational.
Yeah, I think Will McDonald could play the wide linebacker role potentially. That's a good point. I hadn't considered it. Something about free agency that you said when we were talking offline a few weeks ago, Ryan, is it looks like we have a lot of money until you start paying the guys we need to pay, and all of a sudden, by the time you bring in a bridge quarterback and everything else, we probably don't have as much as we're all feeling we do. Now, there's more money to come because we probably cut Fields post June 1st, but anyone who feels that we're very comfortable from a numbers perspective with the cap, maybe go and have a tinker with the numbers, and it can diminish quite quickly. So next year we're going to be very comfortable, but this year maybe not as flexible as we might think, and it's not a brilliant free agency class either. So yeah, we're lucky to have a lot of draft picks this year, I think. Same question, and I'll reverse it this time. I'll go to Ryan first. In a different draft, where do you think Bain would be landing, I suppose, range-wise?
I think he's still probably a top 5 for the majority of the recent history. Obviously, this always depends on how heavy the draft class is for quarterbacks, doesn't it? But I think he's a top 5 talent most years.
I think so. What's the name of the defensive tackle that the Browns took? Was it number 5 last year? Name is
Mason Graham.
Mason Graham. I think he's a better player than Mason Graham if you're projecting him even inside, right? And I think edge is probably a higher value position. So for me, I think he'd be like in and around that 5 mark as well. Maybe a bit higher in some drafts. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I think he's still a top 5 pick as well.
Okay.
Put him outside.
Interesting. That's a bit of a tell in the direction we're going, and even if we didn't mean to do that. But over to Ryan for David Bailey.
Yeah, so David Bailey picked this guy on purpose because he has been somebody that I've thoroughly enjoyed watching this season. The guy is an old-fashioned harass the QB, pure pass rush edge rusher. 14 and a half sacks on the season, 3 forced fumbles, 52 tackles, 32 of which were solo. He clocks in at 6'3", 245 pounds. There's a few bits out there saying he's 250, but I think conservatively he's probably more than 245. The guy, he really is a get after the QB type edge rusher. He's got a fantastic first step. The first step is what wins half the time, but his incredible hand placement straight off the bat. As soon as that first step's gone, the arms are moving. More often than not, that hand is pounding on the chest of the tackle that he's up against, and he's straight away sweeping the hands, and he's starting to make that bend, and he's getting after the quarterback. And it's incredible how often he utilizes that same kind of rotation of 2-3 bits of the move, and he's winning. He block sheds with that hand placement, just makes him such an elite block shedder, and he's really high effort in creating that pressure. And he finishes. That's the big thing. I mean, we've seen it tons of times. I mean, a few years ago, we signed Carl Lawson, who had the highest pressure rate on quarterbacks in the league for like 2 years running. The trouble was he couldn't finish. He never made any sacks. So he was kind of pointless in that sense. But the difference with Bailey is he finishes the job. There are sort of concerns with the run stopping aspect. I don't think that's as big an issue as what people are making. He's not as good a true run stopper as what Ruben Bain is. I think occasionally he does get a bit of tunnel vision. He doesn't always diagnose what the plays are switching when they are moving to a run. And often with his kind of dedication to getting to the quarterback, when there is a switch to a run or an RPO or something like that, he does quite often over pursue. So that's the knock, but he is still capable of stopping the run. He is still capable of containing the edge. And again, very similarly to Bain, he's relentless. He's got high energy. He'll run all game for you, and every play is 100%. Like there's no half measures with him. Really high effort, aggressive guy. The biggest knock people keep talking about with him is that he's a one trick pony, and because he doesn't have necessarily dips and stunts and things like that. But to be honest, when you can get the best of someone with the first step, and your hand placement is so good straight off the mark, do you need much more than one trick? If you're productive and that's working, why do you need to have 100 things in your locker if you're only going to use one?
See,
or you can win with one.
I think it's kind of a lazy take as well. I think when people are saying that, I think that they're saying his one trick is that he's like predominantly pass rusher. It's that he's not doing other things, because I don't know, but like when I saw him on tape, like he was doing all different things. He like has a spin move. He's that punch into the chest you mentioned. He's chopping. He's got a swim moves, dip and rip. So he's doing all that stuff. And like what I liked about him is like he will, if the first thing doesn't work, he will maybe move to a different. He'll try something different. So when they say that, I think that they're talking about the fact that he's just going for the quarterback as opposed to him only having one thing in his arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you see most of the time he is step and a hand in the chest, sweeps the other arm, and he's around. There's a couple of reps against the University of Kentucky where you see that spin, like you said, and the guy is an absolute unit that he's up against, and you can see he starts to try and go around the outside and realizes actually the guy is so big he's going to struggle and get to the quarterback without leaving a gap, and that's where he introduces that spin in that particular one. So I mean, he can do it, but I don't think you see it very often, purely because I don't think it's necessary for the guys he's come up against. Whilst I don't think he's necessarily as well, there's probably a bit of a knock on him. I don't think he's necessarily high football IQ guy. I don't think he's going to be diagnosing plays at the line of scrimmage and stuff like that and orchestrating things like that. But he is still a smart kid. Like, he graduated Stanford in 3 years before transferring to Texas Tech. Like, he is smart, so he's going to be able to learn playbooks, learn new styles of play, hopefully quite quickly. I just don't think he's ever going to be one of those guys that's there diagnosing the play at the line of scrimmage and calling audibles and stuff like that. But it doesn't need to be every player on the field's job to do that.
I think he's got the power though. Like quite often I see him like where he's bull rushing, getting the two of them are standing up against each other, and he has the strength to push off the tackle and move to the rusher or to the running back. And something I kind of, as I was looking through, I found out was he's on the Feldman freak list because for his size, and they're saying he's 250, 245 pounds. There's no way I don't think it's possible. Him and Arvel Reese are the same size. He looks much smaller. But he bench pressed 405 pounds and he squatted 550, which is insane for his size. So he has that power to push guys off if he needs to, and I think that's helped him in the run game as well.
He definitely prefers being standing at the line of scrimmage as well. He can play with his fingers in the dirt, but it's certainly not his most comfortable. He likes to have those hands free to get them into the chest, as we said a moment ago. But yeah, I think I'm a big fan. We know that. I'm intrigued to hear a bit more what Andy thinks as well, to be honest.
Yeah, over to you, Andy.
I did kind of wonder watching him because, like you say, it can be a bit lazy. Some of these takes about they only do one thing because a lot of it is quite often what they're asked to do as well. And Texas Tech, you know how we talk about the likes of the Texans defense versus like the Broncos defense. The Broncos defense has all this complexity to it, all these stunts, whereas Houston is very much about the four guys at the front, the passer every single down. They've got one job and they do it really well. While you guys were talking, I was digging something out that I saw a while ago. So Cody Alexander over at Match Quarters. By the way, anyone who doesn't read his stuff, go and read it immediately. If you want to know anything about defense, it's incredible stuff. He was looking at the diversity scoring of different defenses and their defensive EPA. And Texas Tech are kind of right smack in the middle there as one of the kind of more middle of the road defenses in terms of how much complexity they throw into things like their pass rush and their coverage. Very successful, just like the Texans are with that system, because they have guys like David Bailey there who can do what they're asked to do incredibly well. And obviously that makes it difficult for us then to kind of project, okay, what will they look like doing slightly different? Because the problem is, the pass rush is insane. There's nothing to take away from him with that at all. I was sitting here saying that Bailey is explosive. I mean, Christ, Bailey is so quick off the line and so dominant with how he beats people with that kind of first step that I do have questions about the run game, simply because I haven't seen enough of it to say that he can be that sort of 3-down edge at the NFL level who can set the edge on first and second down and then get to rush the passer after that. So I'd have no issue with him, but I think that when you're taking him, you kind of have to expect that when you first get him on the field, he will have more of that kind of designated pass rush role. But I'm not saying he can't do it. It's just that at the moment, it is an open question.
What surprised me was, right, in 2 less games, he actually has more run stops on the year than Ruben Bain has, which surprised me, to be honest. But I do think that there's times where he has that power. Like I said, he pushes off and he does take the running back out. I was also thinking as well, let's say if we take Ruben Bain at number 2, and I would assume that the Cardinals are going to take an offensive tackle. There's a world where Reese drops because I don't think that Robert Saleh lets David Bailey go. He's just perfect for that scheme, as you said about the Houston scheme. I think with him being at the Titans now, I think that he would love to have David Bailey on his front floor.
Yeah, it's a great shout.
Yeah. So where does Reese? He could drop a little bit. Anything else, Ryan? I think you're right. I think he's just an elite pass rusher. I don't think there's any doubt in that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, like, you can overthink some of these guys at times, but if you're looking for a pure out and out old fashioned pass rusher that's going to terrorize quarterbacks, then David Bailey is a pick that you would make, no questions. But that's not to say that he's necessarily top of my list. before we get there.
Okay. Before we get to that, I'm just going to throw in a couple of numbers at you, right? So I was looking for the pressure rates, and they're measured differently by different websites, and different websites have different numbers for it. So I kind of made up my own one, which is pressures per snap, right? So I took the amount of pressures they have per snap, because looking at their production in isolation is kind of hard, because Ruben Bain has 557 pass rush snaps as an example, and David Bailey has 380. So pressures per snap, right? So the amount of pressures they have in as a ratio to their snaps. So David Bailey's pressures per snap is 21.3%. Ruben Bain, who we all I think really like, his pressure per snap is 14.9% by comparison. And I was a bit surprised the highest of the three is Arvel Reese, actually 22.3 pressures per pass rush snap. Now, I do think that he's also getting pressures from blitzing, so I think that his number is slightly inflated. But sometimes I think when we talk about the amount of sacks a guy has, that I think you have to look at it, the numbers, the denominator number, as well as to how many times he's put in the opportunity to do it, which is kind of to Andy's point as well about the type of system that they run. So just to put those numbers out there might maybe make you think a little bit differently about the impact Reese can have, we'll say, as an example. So I suppose the next segment here is, I think we all really like these three guys, and if I'm honest, talking about myself, I could be talked into any of the three of them. Even as I was going through the process, I changed my mind multiple times, and having this conversation, I think I might have changed my mind as well. Ryan, I got you first this time. You're on the clock at number 2. Who's your guy?
Ruben Bain.
Oh, I'm surprised. I thought it was going to be David Bailey. Okay.
do you know what? And honestly, I reckon I've probably changed my opinion on that 5 or 6 times today.
Yeah.
It's genuinely at this point probably a coin flip.
I was sure it was going to be David Bailey, and to be honest, no matter who you said, I couldn't really argue it. I just think that they're all like, they all just bring different things. I think that we nearly almost need to revisit this conversation when we know who the DC is down the line.
I think so.
Yeah. How about you, Andy? Who's your guy? You're on the clock.
Well, obviously, I want to say Ty Simpson, but no, I'm going to say Ruben Bain, definitely. But for me, I think Bain is just has a kind of extra gear compared to the. It's taken me a while to get there. I think, like Ryan, I wasn't ready to say it maybe a couple of weeks ago, but I think having done some more work on him and sat down and looked at the other options, I think, yeah, Bain for me.
And it's Bain for me as well. And like I said, I expected it to be Arvel Reese because I went and did the deeper dive on him first. And I do think the danger with him is that, like, he's got so much upside, he could end up being like perennial all-pro, and it's hard to pass on him for that reason. But I think based on what's out there and what he can bring to a defense, and I think Ruben Bain can set a tone for a defense, which is a big thing, and we need that. And that's why I go with him as well. Interesting. Okay. Any other thoughts, I suppose? Well, we're kind of on the subject. We're kind of coming up on time anyway, but any kind of closing statements? I'll go to you first this time again, Ryan.
No, look, any one of these guys is gonna do a great job in the NFL, and I won't say I'll be disappointed if we take any one of the three of these. So yeah, I mean, like I said, maybe it's the copium, but I feel like we are in a stronger position for not being strong-armed into taking a quarterback at 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Any closing statements from you, Andy?
No, I'm going to fall down a rabbit hole with what you were talking about with Reese falling in the draft. Now I'm just staring at Kansas City at 9 and just thinking how disgusting it would be if Reese fell down to them at 9.
I think if he gets past maybe 5 or 6, I think someone's going to trade up for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's Kansas City because they're going to take advantage of where they are.
Yeah. Who knows? But no, anyway, I've really enjoyed this exercise because I'm actually quite excited about the number 2 overall pick now, where I think maybe 5-6 days ago I was probably a bit more morose about it. But yeah, excited now.
Totally agree. I love these conversations with the two of you as well, because we all look at it slightly differently, and I think it gives us more of a rounded feeling. Like, even at the start of the podcast, I don't think I expected I was going to pick Ruben Bain. I was unsure. And as we talked through it, and I'm sure the listeners are going to hear different things that they like as we talk through it that might interest them. But yeah, it's Ruben Bain for me as well. And just maybe to just talk through what his production was again, which we talked about at the start. So it's 16 games this year, including the playoffs. Overall grade of 92.8, pass rush grade of 92.4, and a run defense grade of 86.2, all really strong. 83 pressures on the year and 12 sacks, including that 3 QB hits and 68 hurries. So an awful lot to be excited about if he's our guy. So let's see what happens with the DC hire. I think that it's going to be really interesting. Our shortlist is missing a few of the, I suppose, more higher profile candidates that are out there, because let's be real about it, I think that they're afraid to come to the Jets in case we're looking for a head coach in a year's time. So let's see how that falls out, and it might change how we're thinking. Anything that you want to maybe mention about that just before we close out?
No, not for me, but obviously just to say, if they're afraid to come, naturally we don't want cowards at the Jets anyway, so they probably shouldn't come to start with.
Yeah, do you know what? Sorry, after you, Ryan.
No, go on.
I think because it's that situation, I think we're in a situation where we can probably not have to go for the Wink Martindale experienced guy, and we can maybe take a punt on a guy that's, a young talent, so yeah, I think that puts us in almost a less of a pressure situation to have to go for an elite guy, we'll say.
Yeah, I was going to mention Wink Martindale. If next season we start off with Mac Jones and Wink Martindale, I don't think I'll be able to do it.
Just out of interest, out of the names that you guys have heard so far, is there a favourite that you've got for the job?
After you, Ryan.
Assuming that we'll write off our chances of getting Jim Leonard, just because it would be what everybody wants, and when we can't have that as Jets fans. Of the rest of the list, I'm probably leaning most towards Deontay Jones, but I think I'd be okay with Banda. To be honest, they're probably the main two outside of Leonard for me.
Yeah, they're my two as well. I probably have. I could go back and forth between the two. I like the trees that they come from. I like that they're young and up and coming. I know that Neil, who was on the podcast with us before, who's a Browns fan, says that Banda's really highly thought of in Cleveland. He reckons if Schwartz doesn't hang around, that they're going to try and keep him there. But they don't know who the head coach is yet. So that's why we should probably strike now before Cleveland pick a head coach and they kind of take the guy. So I'm hoping we close this out in the next couple of days. How about you, Andy?
Yeah, for me, the one who's kind of risen to the top a little bit, just probably because I've read more on him the past week, is Banda. I liked what I read about his time at Utah and the fact that he's been learning under who's
Schwartz.
The guy there? Schwartz.
Yeah,
the fact that he's been learning under Schwartz as well. I'm really intrigued, but like you say, we need to move fast while the Browns are kind of stuck in the kind of holding pattern they seem to be in at the moment.
Yeah.
The other thing as well is if it's Deontay Jones, then you need to move fairly quickly there too, because the word is that if Brian Flores does move on, that Deontay would be considered for the DC job there. So again, like we are kind of time pressured.
You'd wonder if some of the candidates have told us that they'd be interested if these other roles don't go to them, and we're maybe in a holding pattern as the other side of it, because that's where we're at,
Yeah, and we just kind of have to wait, don't we? We're not really in a position to push for it, because I saw that, who was the guy from the Dolphins that we interviewed, their pass game coordinator? He just got a job somewhere else, didn't he?
Let me dig up his name here again. Yeah, I didn't know he got another job. Where's he gone to?
I can't remember. I saw it a little while ago. Let me have a look.
I can't even remember his name.
Yeah, I don't
Matthew
think
Aurelio, is it?
Araujo or something.
Yeah.
Araujo.
Yeah, I wasn't excited by him anyway, to be honest.
No, I'm kind of glad he's gone elsewhere.
Jim Neal will be okay as well. I think that there's a good chance we are going to take Jim O'Neill because of his ties to the Lions. But because of the ties to the Lions, I'd nearly try and prefer to bring in somebody different, if I'm honest. Just a different voice in the
Yeah,
room.
I feel like sometimes you can return to that tree too often, can't you? And then you're just trying to replicate what went on, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's like it's him hiring somebody who's going to be a yes man for him, which, I just think it's nice to have a different voice in the room.
Oh, he's gone to Jacksonville.
Okay. Young setup there. We're coming up on time, boys, so I think we'll probably close up there if there's nothing else that you'd like to add.
No, nothing,
Good,
mate.
mate.
Perfect. Brilliant analysis. I really enjoyed this conversation, so great work from the two of you. Thanks very much for everything, and thanks to all the listeners for listening in. Ryan, where can the listeners find you?
On pretty much every platform, X, Twitter, Instagram, all of Sleeper, at that UK Gator guy.
How about you, Andy?
Yeah, just Twitter for me, Coffee and Jets, and you can find links to my Substack there as well.
Perfect. And I'm Irish Jet on X, and I'm signing out. And
y'all know what to say. On 3. 1, 2, 3.